Nintendo are on an absolute tear at the moment with a direct presentation dedicated to Tomodachi Life announced for the 29th of January. Now, Thursdays is a busy day for me, and I don't actually know that much about Tomodachi Life as a game, since it will be the first one that I'm going to be playing, so I may not do a video after, but the big question being posed around this is when Tomodachi Life will actually be dated, and what the implications this direct announcement has for a full general direct later in the year. First of all, on Tomodachi, while I don't have any particular speculation about the possibilities that might be included in this game, one real long-shot concept that I've thought about before, a concept that I think is hugely unlikely but is theoretically possible, is personalized amiibo. Funko Pops are absolutely huge, and in theory, with swappable manufactured parts, it may be possible to create a large range of quite personalized amiibo, doubtless with hefty price premiums. They've done mad amiibo concepts before, such as the wool ones for Yoshi's Woolly World, and they even made me amiibos previously for Smash. I think the potential is absolutely vast with Tomodachi Life. Is it likely? I mean, any left field concept like this is intrinsically low odds, but if you were going to do something like this, you'd want to ameliorate the fiddle of doing it by high production volume, and so launching it alongside a movie would potentially appeal to a large number of people, and would also justify what, and I'll go on to this later in the video, seems like it could be an unusually long wait from the direct to the actual game drop. Anyway, with regard to how this shapes the likelihood of a full direct, I don't think a dedicated direct for one game says much one way or the other. If there's a general direct, Tomodachi Life will be promoted if it hasn't launched yet, and even if it has, they probably will still find some way to spotlight it. It's true that the date will be significant, but to be frank, this is of niche interest to anybody outside the Nintendo fan community. New games are likely to be far more crucial in moving the dial in the wider public. Having said that, the date itself should tell us an awful lot by implication, and so it is worth thinking about. The big question is, when exactly will this game release? The Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct was 18th of June, just 4 weeks before that title launched. Mario Kart Worlds was 17th of April, more than 6 weeks ahead of launch. Splatoon 3's trailer was also 30 days before launch, while Air Riders had 2 directs, but the second was 4 weeks before launch. I could easily see Nintendo doing a double dip, Air Rider style, on Direct, with a game that in Japan at least has a pretty significant following and did some pretty big sales on the 3DS, and I could also understand why they would want a Tomodachi Life Direct now while so many eyes are on Animal Crossing New Horizons following the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, since that title shares some general commonalities in terms of genre and there is potentially a significant crossover audience. If we assume, though, that the game will only have the single direct, this would imply a date in late February or March. Now, it's incredibly rare for Nintendo to announce games with less than a month before release, and the only time I can think they've done it in recent years is with Mario Anniversary titles. I don't see why they'd do it here either. Therefore, while 26th of February is theoretically feasible, the next likely window is March, with Pocopia on the 5th and Super Mario Bros. Wonder on the 26th, the only dates in March that are free, bearing in mind that Nintendo almost always releases their games on Thursday, would be the 12th and the 19th, and I suspect the latter would be more likely, as I think they're more willing to go close to a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, as they did in the case of Donkey Kong Bonanza, but they very rarely crowd out a new game like Pocopia in this way, although there is precedent if you go far enough back in some markets. I think the last time with retail titles may be the Western releases of Fire Emblem Warriors and Super Mario Odyssey on consecutive weeks. As for 3 games in 1 month, that's an incredible rarity, but then again, I never expected that they would announce the Switch 2 on the same day as a Donkey Kong Country Returns game released. If Tomodachi launched in March, then they're possibly looking to juice their lineup after seeming to go slow on releases earlier in the month. This could either be because they want to signal to markets that there's life in the old company yet by bringing forward a title that's been basically ready to go for a while into this financial year, or it could just have been their plan all along. Tomodachi is the kind of casual title that would probably have a good crossover appeal to movie audiences, so while I've noted before that the end of April to May is usually the window Nintendo likes to use these kinds of ultra-casual titles, if there is a business case for a move, then who knows. If it doesn't release in March, though, then I think we will get into double direct territory because early April games are nearly unheard of, certainly in recent times, and I suspect Nintendo likes to end on a big title for the financial year and then reset a bit during April, especially as there's the Japanese Golden Week holiday there. The first date I would therefore expect to see anything would be the 23rd and far more likely the 30th of April, 3 months and a day from this direct. Frankly, if that's the date, it wouldn't surprise me if they kept the date under their hats for a little while longer and a double direct might become a serious likelihood. Having said all that, if they confirm a date at all, it would seem to greatly limit the need for a full general direct anytime soon. Yes, directs are useful for building hype and momentum, but Nintendo actually has an awful lot on the slate right now. Late February could see the Pokemon Gen 10 announcement. Mario Day could easily see lots of news on Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, as well as focusing on the Mario merchandising line and possibly any celebrations for the film linked to their various locations. If they date everything up to April, they can probably hold off on a direct for some considerable time. My theory has long been that Nintendo will announce a major Mario game only after the movie releases, after all, making the best use of their existing inventory during April. However, I think it's tricky to imagine them holding out all that long. Granted, they don't need to do something in February, but even in 2020 and 2024, they dropped something at the last minute in March. March represents a 6-month gap from the last direct, and if they want to pivot to twice-yearly presentations instead of the 3 times a year they once did, it would make some sense to pick March. If they hit the end of the year without a decent slate of unannounced games, it might cast a shadow over the company's public image, and come what may, I can't see them wanting to get to the beginning of May, the year-end investor meeting, without having tipped their hand in a significant way. If Pokemon Champions and Tomodachi Life are April and May games, and if they either Shadow Drop Rhythm Heaven in the next few months or date a Fire Emblem game to, let's say, the end of May in a dedicated April Fire Emblem Direct, then they could probably hold out until their end of April for a major new General Direct. With 4 weeks of box offices in the back pocket and prior to their big investor presentations, they could then confidently announce the major new Mario title for October, or even, if they really wanted to juice things, for July. Splatoon Raiders, new Mario, and perhaps 2 or 3 smaller titles would likely see us through September. On the other hand, if they do opt for a February Direct, they're going to have to be a lot cannier. Absent Pokemon and Mario, there are perhaps 5 slots this year to fill, and they'd need to be announcing most of them to make up for, in volume, what's likely in the schedule to be lacking in terms of Megaton AAA titles at a time when the Switch 2 is starting to receive criticism for a lack of titles of that nature. A shadow drop such as for the playtest game would be helpful, of course. This was always my base expectation, a February Direct that fleshes out most of the year, a June Direct that focuses on a major Mario reveal, and a September Direct that leads with the Zelda anniversary. The February-June-September rhythm has been a staple over the years, and while they've deviated from it on occasion, it makes sense to me as a kind of cycle that they can use. The only reason to expect a change really is if they want to go to a 2 per year schedule with April Directs as a regular feature, or at least late March Directs if they want to get in their news before the end of the financial year. There is a logic to this, since I'm not sure Nintendo has a sufficient depth of titles to do majorly exciting directs every time out, and while pack directs are as hype as anything, middling directs don't really move the dial as much as we might all remember. For this reason, I'm not bothered personally if they move to fewer, bigger directs. After all, the total number of games is going to be the same. Of course, there is another option, which is that they don't do a June Direct but reveal Mario in its own presentation. Miyamoto appears with some news about the film, celebrates the box office success they'll be hoping to have, and then teases a big new game, which is the subject of a subsequent Direct, which he announces for a few weeks' time. If they really wanted to milk the film window as long as they could probably drop a Mario announcement in early May with a tease of a Direct in a few weeks, something they've done a couple of times before with Switch 2 news. It would be odd to treat a single game like they treat a console, but fully new 3D Marios are, on the current track record, even rarer species than full new consoles, and it's about as market-sensitive a piece of news as you could get, so I guess it would kind of make sense to tie it to investor briefings. I don't really think it will come to that, though, and it will be very odd if Nintendo goes from September to potentially June without any kind of major presentation. So in terms of likelihoods, I like to try to put percentages to my judgments on this channel. As ever, I need to emphasize these are just my ready reckons, and I don't have any kind of mathematical basis for them, except that I aim to be accurate over the long term and to try and tweak my judgments based on past experiences so that I hopefully become more accurate over time. Will there be a date in the direct for Tomodachi Life? Usually we'd expect one, but given how competitive the March window seems to be, and that the next likely release window will be April, I'd say there's only a 50% chance. In terms of when to expect a full general direct, I'd say the 90% point is prior to the May financials. Yes, they theoretically could do one after if they thought it would have more impact, but I suspect a direct without revealing their big Mario game is far more likely. As I forecast previously, a February or March direct seems odds on, but it's true that if they fill up the schedule until April, one won't be strictly necessary. And the odds of personalised Me toys of some description this year, amiibo or otherwise, I would put at 10%, although if they were ever going to do some, launching it alongside Tomodachi Life in a big movie would be the obvious opportunity. That's it for now. Do check out the Patreon for early ad-free and exclusive content. Please do check out these recent videos on screen, since with Nintendo producing so much news, there have been quite a lot lately. And thanks as ever for watching, and I'll see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.